Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Players Zone YouTube channel. And as the international break has hit us and we've got a bit of a time to, take breath, take stock before the season hits the funky old season of Christmas, I thought there's a good chance here to go through and talk about some of the themes we've seen so far this season. So in this video, I'm going to be talking you through 5 players who have surprised us, who have impressed us so far this season, whether it be improvements from last season, expectations being low for them, or even just not knowing who they were and then coming to the league and proving they're absolute superstars. So the Premier League obviously is the biggest league in the world. There's always eyes on these players, and these are 5 players. There could be more I could have listed, but 5 that I've picked out that have really impressed me, surprised me, and have a really good start to the season so far. Before we get into the video, guys, if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, and sharing the channel, that would be much appreciated. And with all that being said, let's get straight in to these 5 players who surprised us so far this season. Our first sort of surprise package is, it's a bit of a questionable one, but I sort of had to put him in this list. For me, it's Pedro Neto. The 7 assists so far in the Premier League makes him the league leader for assists. Had a goal in there as well, a great solo goal at Luton there. And with his 0.71 assists per 90, he's in currently the top 1% for wingers in the world, as well as being the top 1% for expected assists. So he's creating so many chances for this Wolves team. And with all the turmoil that happened with Wolves at the start of the season, like Vicario leaving, and Gary O'Neill only given 2 to 3 days to prepare for the season, my expectations were so low on them. Coming to the year, I had them in and around the relegation zone, and was pretty confident that because they hadn't signed anyone. They lost arguably one of the better managers in Europe, and all of a sudden their season turned around. They're currently sitting 12th, and it's on the back of this guy here, because coming to the season, the lack of signings only brought Cunha back for a fee, considering he was there on loan last season. I was so confused where the goals were coming from. They had a lack of conviction up front. Raul Jimenez wasn't the answer, but he got sold as well. So you're thinking, where's these goals going to come from? Where are they going to find the ability to put goals in the back of the net? Because the last season, and I guess the half season prior to that, their weakness has already been, scoring goals. They were become a really strong defensive side to try and not concede many, but scoring was the hard problem. And so far this season, they haven't scored a ridiculous amount of goals, but the chance creation's been there, and I feel like it's on the back of Pedro Neto. This guy has elevated his game to a next level. We've seen signs in the past, but he's been to the second, third fiddle to other wingers and other forwards in this Wolves team. But he's had his opportunity this season to make the position his, and he's shone out for them. Obviously, as I said, Wolves sitting in 12th in the Premier League so far, and I can rattle off stats all day. He ranks top 4 currently for key passes, the top 4% for key passes, averaging 2.44 key passes per 90 minutes. He's proved so important for their chance creation, and you can see the difference in the levels he's lifted, because last season he made the 18 Premier League appearances with no goals and no assists, and so far this season, goals and assists combined for 8 there, and just he's changing the way Wolves are playing their football. Wang's probably thanking him so much, considering how much he set up at a plate for Wang, Matheus Cunha, these other sort of forwards and number 10s, which he's done the hard work for, and set some chances up at a plate for them. And I think back to some of the better results this season. Obviously, a solo go versus Luton saves him a point in the end after being down to 10 men. We've also got the Man City game where he performed very, very well. And also the Aston Villa game where he was chopping them up. So I think back to some of those home games, even the first half against Newcastle before he got injured, was just a massive difference. And I think the biggest thing, as I said, you see him get injured. The next game they go play Sheffield United away, they lose 2-1, and there was a lack of real chance creation, a lot of nothing possession for them in that game. And Sheffield United saw a weakened Wolves team and made the most of it. So, I know they've been impressive this season, and a lot of players have stepped up to the plate, but I feel like it's all stemmed back to Pedro Neto and his improvement and his ability to facilitate this Wolves side and create chances. Because in the Premier League, we talk a lot about having a good striker, having good centre backs, but a lot of big teams and a lot of teams in the league, just want a good striker, because getting the ball in the back of the net is the biggest thing. And last season they struggled to do that, but this season it's come because of Pedro Neto and his play. He's had 30.8 passes per game, which again elevates from last season's 17.33. So he's getting more involved. He's a pivotal part to their play, and obviously you see these numbers: the top 1% for assists per 90, the top 1% for expected assists. It just sort of screams at the page at you because, I think everyone's expectation for Wolves this season was very low, whether it be a part of relegation battle or whether it be well and truly in the bottom half. They've totally exceeded expectations, and I think the surprise package, not only is the team, but Pedro Neto is that leader of that group, and I can't wait to see him come back from injury because he's such an exciting player to watch, but also Wolves need him so much this season for chance creation. They got lucky on the weekend that Tottenham didn't play great, aggressive style of football, but we saw that Sheffield United chopped them up, a 2-1 win there without Pedro Neto there. They'll be desperate to have him back as soon as possible because he has been massive for them this season. My second player on the surprise packages list comes in the form of a new signing. The new Tottenham goalkeeper, Vicario, obviously come from Empoli last season with the reputation of a ball-playing goalkeeper. That's a new theme. That's a new catchphrase this season, ball-playing. And I got the opportunity, obviously, to go watch Tottenham play West Ham in the pre-season here in Perth, and I got to see him in goal, and I was not impressed, to say the least. Looking very shaky with his hands. It was a sort of windier night, but didn't look good with the ball at his feet either. And I thought, they've really stuffed this up here. They've gotten rid of, obviously, Lloris wasn't great towards the back end last season, but he's an old and trusted name. And you bring in this young Vicario, who is, I guess, unproven in a way. Empoli, Syria, it's not the biggest place to go and prove yourself. A lot of unknowns, but purely the fact that he had the ability to ball play. So I was looking at that first game versus Brentford and a few shaky signs early. I know we say a lot in the podcast that you never know what's going to happen with him when the ball was at his feet towards the first 3 or 4 games of the season. But ever since that point, he's made a massive turn, and save after save and big moment after big moments, he's been massive for Tottenham. And again, another team where their whole expectations as a group's been exceeded. But a key part of that as well has been the goalkeeper situation. I look back to that Chelsea game nearly 2 weeks ago, and the saves he was making in these one-on-ones, they had the high line. They were going through on goal consistently, and Vicario is coming out, making himself big, saving with his face, saving with his arm, his leg. He was making some ridiculous saves, and he has made these ridiculous saves so far this season. Obviously, Spurs aren't exposed as many shots as other teams are, but I think we talk about it a lot on the podcast, and something that I think I value as well is the ability for these keepers in the top 6 clubs who probably won't see many shots a game to switch on and make that last-second save, whether it be a team countering later on in the 90th minute to try and draw the game, or a team countering trying to win the game. When you haven't seen the ball for 80, 90 minutes, the ability to make that one-on-one save like Alisson does so consistently, like Edison fails to do at times, is a difference making these keepers. And I think he's shown so far this season when he's called for, when he's called up to make some saves, he has done that. He's made no real blunders in the Premier League this season, despite what I saw the blunders he was making in pre-season. He's been super impressive so far this season. As I said, only conceded the 9 goals this season and kept the 4 clean sheets. The 4 clean sheets equal second amongst a lot of goalkeepers in the Premier League. But only the 9 goals conceded, considering they have shipped 6 goals in the last 2 games, has been ultra impressive. And obviously it's a defensive unit. Those back 4 in front of him has been incredible so far this season as well. But, where I saw him coming from and what I thought of him, especially that first game versus Brentford, I didn't think much of him. I didn't think he'd be a great keeper or keep him for the future, but he matured so quickly. He's become a really, really staple part of this Tottenham team, and has been remarkable so far this season. Consistently, something we have to talk about in terms of an all-round package. Obviously not up there in the conversation with Edison, Alisson, maybe the Nick Popes of the world, but not far off it because he's putting together some great performances so far this season, and is someone that's definitely surprised me. He's been a part of a Tottenham defence has been remarkable. And again, the goalkeeper is always a part of a defence. I know Ben Foster a lot says it in his podcast and shows that it's a back 5, right? The keeper and the back 4, all one unit. So they're all working well in unison. They're all playing really, really well together. And all props to Vicario because he's made a great start at Tottenham and looks like one of the top 5 Premier League goalkeepers at this current point in time. The third player on this list for surprising players is someone who's obviously a really established Premier League player, a solid Premier League player, but someone who's taken their game to the next level, and it's John McGinn. The Scottish midfielder has been ridiculous so far for Villa this season, and as is with the first 2, it coincides with this great form that Aston Villa have got. He scores at home a lot, but he scores some absolute belting goals as well. He's got the 3 goals and the 2 assists so far in the Premier League this season, and as I said, it feels like every goal is a belter from outside the box, and being the captain of the club and being a part of this midfield, which we talked about again on the podcast, that is so dynamic, so fluid, and just does everything so well. I feel like on a pie graph, John McGinn this season can fill up every component. I know in the past he's been that sort of breaker up of the play, a proper holder in midfield, but so far this season we've seen another side of his game, that more progressive aspect to John McGinn's game. I think that's come under Unai Emery and allowing him to express himself on the field. We're seeing him get more forward, get on the edge of the opposition's area to take these shots from outside the box and set up assists for other players as well. The 5 contributions, goals and assists so far this season, looks head and shoulders above what he did last season. Much more of a holder, much more of someone that would play from deep. And he still has his aspects to his game, but he's developed a more progressive aspect where sometimes he does feel like he's the number 10 for this Aston Villa side, and he's done that role so well. I think the best way to describe him is someone who can break the play up but progress the ball going forward, and it's so important for Villa with their high and wide wingers, with their fullbacks that bomb on, that in a midfield trio with a player like John McGinn that can only defend but can help progress the ball going forward, because there isn't any fullbacks like other teams tucking into midfield and helping assist and build up play there. It isn't a really defensive system where all the players are sitting in deep, so you have to build out from the back. A lot of the times there's 4 or 5 players up the pitch, and John McGinn has to get the tackle and get the ball going their way, and he does a great job at that this season. That Brighton game, he was remarkable. On the weekend as well against Fulham, he was really, really good as well. I think back to the Burnley game early in the season as well, we had an absolute ripper of a game. It just feels like every game he's had an impact on this Villa side. I know we're doing Premier League sort of chat here, but also in Europe as well. In the Conference League, he's been ridiculous for Villa, I think with 2 goals and an assist in there as well. So he's getting the offensive output, which is probably deserved for him this season. He's put obviously the extra effort in, he's worked in his game, and now he looks like the complete midfielder. He can play as a number 10, I feel like, or number 8. And we know in the past we've seen him playing in a more holding number 6 position. So he's picked up all these little aspects, and Unai Emery's made him an absolute gun in that midfield that does a little bit of everything right now. He's averaging 2 successful take-ons per game, which puts him in the top 3% of midfielders in that category. Once again, proving my point that he not only wins the ball now, but he takes the ball and carries the ball and progresses the ball forward. And that his take-on numbers, I expected them to be much lower last season. So again, lifting that game, developing his game, becoming a more all-rounder midfielder. And it means a lot to this Aston Villa side with Diaby, with Bailey, with Watkins, who are, let's be honest, just attacking players. They're not going to drop in deep and help out defensively. So the ability for him to break the play up, to protect this back line that's, again, with Cash and Digne, very aggressive, very front foot orientated, is so important. But to get the ball broken up, but also get the ball going forward to these great players is as important as well, especially in this system that is so front foot orientated, which is so possession based, which is so progressive and exciting to watch. It's been John McGinn that's facilitated this in midfield, I think. Finishing off on some of the stats, he's got the 82% pass completion rate, which again just shows his ability to get the ball moving in the direction and do it safely. In a midfield 3 and with 2 fullbacks that are bombing on, you want to be really making sure these passes are correct. And with so much possession, the ability to be broken from a poor pass and get conceding from a counter attack is so easy. So you've got to be precise in that midfield, and he's got that through that pass completion rate. Obviously, the 0.44 goals and assists per 90 minutes with his 5 goal contributions puts him in the top sort of 10% for midfielders this season as well. So he's competing with some of the best, and considering naturally we all see him as a number sort of 8, number 6 as a holder or a deeper lying midfielder, he's gone and showed he's got more than that to his game, and he's showing that he's a real value here at Villa Park, and definitely a real leader on that football pitch. Not only with the armband on his shoulder, but the way he acts and the way he performs on the pitch, it does it as well. So a really impressive start to the season for John McGinn. A bit of a different sort of player. We know how good he can be, but for me, I've been surprised with the levels he's lifted this season and the levels he's playing at. Very consistent, very good so far, and keen to see how he goes for the back end of the season. Next player is once again from Tottenham. Obviously, they're doing one of the greatest, most surprising parts this season. So no surprise, there's 2 players on my top 5 list that came from this club. Is Yves Bissouma, who's been ridiculous so far this season for Tottenham. The surprising package is the way he's just come back in this Tottenham team and made such a big difference. Obviously, just relegated to the bench despite the money move last season. Only made the 9 starts for Tottenham in the Premier League, and to minimal impact at all. I don't think he had much of an impact at all. Obviously, the injury towards the back end of the season just summarised his year. A bit all over the place, not featuring much, and almost forgotten about. I think coming to the pre-season, especially in our podcast, we were trying to work out where Tottenham needed to strengthen, and I think a lot of us were saying midfield, because we totally forgot about what Yves Bissouma brought and how good he was at Brighton. He was that guy that was that energizer midfield that broke the play up, picked the ball up and got the ball going forward, worked with the likes of McAllister in that midfield that was so dynamic in those sort of COVID seasons. And when I think of Yves Bissouma, I think of that energizer, and I think of someone that's so defensively solid. And he's brought that this season for Tottenham, but to an even better extent, with the addition of the ability to carry the ball forward. He's a great partner with Papa Sarr there in midfield, where they are constantly rotating in the number 8, number 6 role, so in and out of those positions. And he does so well at just doing what Tottenham does best, which is playing possession but be aggressive, get the ball going on the front foot. Similar to John McGinn, I didn't think he had this side of the game to him, but he's showing that he does in this Tottenham system, and probably once again, Ange allowing him to express himself, being more front foot orientated and showing that he's got this side of his game. He's now being the top 3% for successful dribbles per 90 with 2.33 per 90 minutes, and an 80% dribble success rate, which is just ridiculous for a sort of deeper line midfielder. It just shows in this Tottenham system, in this Tottenham team, and with his abilities, he has this all-round game where he can take it to the next level and really compete with some of the best midfielders in the world in the Premier League, because we know how good he is defensively. I might as well rattle off the stats here. He's top 1% for tackles and top 1% for ground duels won, averaging 3.64 tackles per 90 minutes and the 8.5 ground duels won per 90 minutes. So we know how good he is defensively. We saw that at Brighton. He was that guy that would be the aggressor, be the energizer to win possession back for that Brighton team and get him going the other way. But now he's got the ability to carry the ball himself the other way and progress himself the other way. And obviously with Tottenham, with so much possession and with so much ball on the edge of the area, he's obviously going to get the extra touches. But this top 3% for midfielders in successful dribbles and the high 80% dribble success rate shows he's got this all-round game to him. Obviously hasn't got the goals and assists to the numbers yet, but we do really expect that? Probably not. That's what James Maddison's son have been doing this season. Those wingers, Kulusevski and Richarlison at times, they're all in charge of doing that with the high-low wingers and the forward that's in behind. That's their job. But the elevation of a game, I think the best way to put it, that's the elevation of his game from just being purely, a deep-lying, holding sort of player that wins the ball back, to being a player that can hold, that can play at an 8 and can even progress the game forward, can be an important part for the possession style, aggressive style of football that Ange Postecoglou likes to play. It's more strings in the bow for Yves Bissouma, and going from someone that was forgotten about last season to being arguably probably the top 3 most pivotal players in the Tottenham side. It goes to show how important he is for the team, but also how improved he is and how surprising it is what he's done this season. I think with Maddison and Van de Ven, along with Bissouma here, I think those 2 are the most important pieces for Tottenham. And if any of them are out, like we've seen on the weekend with Van de Ven and Maddison out, it makes a huge difference to the way this team plays. We've got to see one occasion when he was out, obviously after the red card at Luton. I think it was at home the next game versus Fulham, and it wasn't quite that same midfield. It didn't have that same duo. I think Papa Sarr and Yves Bissouma are one of the best combinations in midfield so far this season. And it wasn't quite the same progressive style of Tottenham that game. I remember watching and thinking they're not as front foot orientated, not as energized, and I think that comes from Yves Bissouma. We just underappreciate his ability to carry the ball, to progress the ball for Tottenham, and most importantly break that play up and get Tottenham going in the other direction. They've played so well this season, and I think it's on the back of Yves Bissouma, that midfield holding everything together. The midfield battles in the Premier League are very important to winning games of football, and the midfield in general is massive for any team, and the structure, the style of play they're trying to accomplish. I think Yves Bissouma does everything that Ange asked for him, and has done a lot to progress this Ange system to being so successful so early in the season. So all respect to Yves Bissouma, a great start of the year, and hopefully he can keep going with it. Our 5th and final player is a part of the top 5 most surprising or most improved players this season is Anthony Elanga. I talked a bit about him coming into the season. Obviously, as a Manchester United fan, I've seen a bit of him in the past, but I've been super impressed with what he's done so far this season. Someone that heralded as the star boy under Ralph Rangnick, the player that he sort of fell back on. Some great goals in the Champions League and in the Premier League as well under Ralph Rangnick's reign, but then fell off towards the back end of that season, and then all of last season struggled under Erik ten Hag for minutes, for quality, and you could tell he probably wasn't up to the Manchester United standard. He always worked hard, but it probably wasn't that sort of player up for that level of football. He obviously gets a decent money move to Nottingham Forest in the summer, and I thought, will he still get game time with some of the quality they had up front and some of the players they've got around the club? But he's worked his way into this lineup, and he's featured in every single Premier League game so far this season, which goes to show his work ethic and his quality on the football pitch. But especially in the last 5 weeks, but on the season, he's been super aggressive and super impressive for this Nottingham Forest side. The 2 goals, the 3 assists, obviously the goal on the weekend against West Ham, a great run, a great little 1-2 play with Tayo Awoniyi, and those two together as a combination up front have been super impressive. I've loved watching them play. Pace, power, and what we're seeing now from Elangana is improved precision. Some of these assists, he's improving the precision of his game. He's obviously always going to be a threat in the counter-attack with his strength and also with his pace. That Chelsea game, that massive goal that gets him over the line in the end, comes from Anthony Elangana. The goal against West Ham as well to put them in front comes from some basic solo work from Anthony Elangana. And some of his assists as well, his precision with cutting the ball back or laying the ball to the strikers, whether it be Awoniyi, Chris Wood, other wingers like Gibbs White. He's just found that extra part to his game. I think that precision, if it comes, that ability to nail the pass in the final third or to be a bit more effective in the final third with the ball at his feet, if he can elevate his game there, watch out the Premier League, because he's got all these features to be such a dangerous player. He's a spark sort of player now, but if he picks up this more precision, improved work in the final third, that's when you're in a bit of trouble, because that's when you're amongst some of the best wingers in the Premier League, because pace and power can get you so far, but you need that final product to be successful in the Premier League. And if he's starting to develop, which I think he is, I think I'm seeing better signs to what we sort of was the back end of last year at Manchester United and at the start of this season. You've got to be worried if you're other sort of defenders in the league. He put Soufal on his backside last time out and was massive against Aston Villa as well. He was causing Matty Cash a very hard time there, especially someone who likes to get forward. Elangana was keeping him accountable on the counter-attack, and whenever Forest had ability to drive at these defenders. I just think his work with Awoniyi has gone under the radar. I think a lot of people are talking about Tayo Awoniyi and his goals and numbers and his scoring this season, but I think it's been a great dual effort between him and Elangana, and I think he missed Awoniyi a lot when he was out injured, but now that he's back, we see that connection already at West Ham. Elangana and Awoniyi are a great duo, a duo that can get, I think, Forest, that mid-table 10th to 12th sort of position with the way these two play. They've got the outputs in them, and if Elangana goes to score 10 goals this season, 8 goals, and gets it at 12 assists, what a successful season it would be. It's obviously really low level right now, but what I'm seeing, that raw talent starting to be refined, and I'm starting to see some really positive signs out of him. And arguably, outside of Awoniyi, the most impressive player in Forest this season. So all respect to him, a great start of the season. Hope he can kick on with it, because I really love watching him play. Super excitement machine. So hope we can see more of him towards the back end of the season and consistent performances throughout the year. That there wraps up our number 5 player in the most surprising players from the Premier League so far this season. So there we go, ladies and gents. There are 5 players that I've put down that's really surprised me or lifted their levels or have elevated their game so far in the first 12 weeks of the Premier League season. It's basically like a third of the way through the season now. I thought it was a good time for, especially with the international break, we can look back at some of the performances. Obviously, there's 10, 12, 15 names I could have put in there, but these are some of the ones that have stood out to me, players that where I've watched them that really stood out and been really impressed with some of the things they've tinkered with. A few players that obviously we know a lot about, but have improved parts of their game, and a few players that we didn't know much about or haven't seen much of a sample size, but we're starting to see some massive improvements and massive signs of some really quality players there. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to smack a like on it, subscribe to the Players Own channel, and share it with mates for more football content, for more podcast-based content with athletes and very special individuals. It's all going to be here on this channel. We're getting into the clips as well, so hopefully if you find us off TikTok or YouTube Shorts, please make sure to subscribe channel as well. We're trying to grow over this Christmas period, and I respect all the support I've got so far, and hopefully some more support along the way as well. With that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the video very, very soon. And until then, see you later. Peace.